Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Marvel Plus, the podcast devoted to all things MCU. Yeah, you like that? I changed that up just a little bit because it's kind of silly, isn't it? Is it kind of silly that I still say devoted to the Disney Plus Marvel series, even though we're covering other stuff as well? Um, yeah, it's kind of hard to just stick to these series when they hardly ever put any out anymore. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Welcome to the show. My name is Brett Scott. I am your host, and this, my friends, is your favorite podcast. I'm all alone today. No guest this week. I actually had a guest scheduled. New friend of mine. Very interesting dude. Very funny dude. I can't wait to have him on. He had something come up last minute. We weren't able to make things work, but he's going to be here next week. So very excited for that. Very excited for you guys to hear this guy because he leads an interesting life compared to some of the other guests we've had. He does something a little different for a career, and I'm not going to give that away just yet. But I find it a fascinating career and an admirable. Like, I personally admire people in his field. So he will be here next week. This week, you're dealing with just me, baby. Just me. So I don't know how long this episode will be. There's no one for me to really bounce my ideas off of. You're just going to get my general thoughts on this episode as I take you through it. But before we even get to that, I'm going to say a big, big thank you to the Patreon supporters. Everyone who supports over on patreon.com/Marvel Plus. Thank you so much. It really means a lot that people are willing to, put out their hard-earned money just to get my extra content, just to support me and this podcast and all, everything that I do. It's kind of unbelievable that it's even a thing, and I'm just so happy to have the people that I have over there. So thank you guys so much. You guys are getting this before anyone else, and you're getting the video version of this. So any of you listening who are only hearing my beautiful voice right now, you could be seeing my beautiful face as well. And you could be seeing it a day earlier than anyone else even hears it. So keep that in mind going forward. If you want some extra content, not only the episodes in video format and a day early, but also bonus podcasts, going back through the early MCU, reviewing it from Iron Man on. If you're interested in that sort of thing, I have new guests on there all the time as well. Go check it out. It's cheap, baby. I don't charge an arm and a leg for the Patreon. I don't think that highly of myself. So just know, I'm a cheap date. I'm a cheap date. You don't have to pay much to hang out with me. You don't have to go broke to kick it, as they say. As who says? I don't know. Who says that? No one says that. But before we even get into to this week's episode of Loki, I did want to touch a little bit on the fact that they decided to kind of re-release Werewolf by Night this year for the Halloween season. I was really hoping to get some other story for this Halloween, like some other venture into the Marvel horror realm, maybe a Tomb of Dracula short or special presentation, what have you. Ghost Rider, who knows? I mean, there's so many dark stories that they could tell. There's so much source material for this stuff that I was really hoping that they would continue with that trend and do something different every year. They didn't do it this year, but they did give us Werewolf by Night in color, which, at first I'm like, why? Why do they do this? Because, I like the black and white. It adds to the vintageness of what it is, right? It's very much a callback, a shout out, a paying homage to the horror movies of old. I mean, really old. I mean, way back to silent films and early talkies, right? Those films are what you think of when you watch Werewolf by Night in black and white, not as much in color. And I thought, man, this is really gonna just take away from that a little bit, the vintage feel of it. And surprisingly, I actually enjoyed rewatching it in color. It's worth a watch because you get to see things that maybe you didn't see or pick up on, little idiosyncrasies, little things that are just slightly different or brought to light in color. Just kind of things you're like, oh, I guess I didn't realize, that that would have been that color because it was in black and white. All you see is shades, right? Darks, lights, grays, blacks, whites. So it was interesting. You remember in the original, the only thing that was in color was the bloodstone. It was always that bright ruby red bloodstone, and everything else was in black and white, which was really cool, right? It shines a light on how important this gem is. Now, I really enjoyed the color version because it gave you more. And you know what? It still felt pretty vintagey. I thought it would also kind of take away and make things look a little more like if I saw it in color, would I think it looked lame? Would I think it looked not as good? Would it take away a little bit of the mystique and kind of shine a light on things that didn't look so great? And I found that not really. I actually still thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I prefer the black and white version just because that's how it was meant to be seen. I think it it does take away a little bit in that respect. It's better as an homage with the black and white veneer, right? But I still liked it. I still liked it, and I think it offers something that the black and white version doesn't. So I would say go check it out if you haven't. If you're kind of overlooking it and saying like, I've already seen Werewolf by Night, why do I need to see it in color? Trust me, I was the same way. It still gives you a little extra, and it's a fantastic outing by Marvel. I think it's. I remember I had it up there as one of my top rated things the year that it came out. So even for that, it's a great show, And if you haven't watched the black and white version, go watch the black and white. Watch it first and get the version that was meant to be gotten, right? Check that one out first. Then yeah, give it a shot in color, and you will find some things that maybe you didn't notice in the original black and white version. So that's my 2 cents. If you have watched this, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear it. Send me an email. You can write in, or you can find me on social media at Real Brett Scott. But if you don't want to do that, you can email the show, Marvel Plus Podcast at gmail.com. You can always email the podcast. You said, recommendations. If you want me to cover something outside of the MCU, over on Patreon, or you have questions about the podcast or questions about me or whatever, you want to do like a Ask Me Anything episode, please send in any questions you have that you think I could answer for you, no matter what that might be. MCU, opinions on all things nerdy and geeky, whatever you want to talk about, just your opinions on the most recent episode. I love getting stuff like that, and I'll read it here on the podcast if you want, unless you specify not to. I love the correspondence. I love going back and forth with you guys. That's like the main reason I do this, is the community of it. It wouldn't be fun if I didn't get feedback, if I didn't have interesting conversations with interesting people. That's my favorite thing about doing this podcast is having new and interesting people on all the time, making new friends. I've made so many friends through this podcast, more than anything else that I do, entertainment wise. Like, I do other podcasts, I do YouTube. I have made more friends doing the Marvel Plus podcast than anything else. And that just speaks to the community of, Marvel fans, right? MCU fans, geeks, right? There's good people here, man. There's good people here, and most people are pretty damn positive. Yeah, do we have the dark corner of the web where people are just jerks and want to hate on everything? Sure, but I think for the most part, people who are MCU fans, people who are Marvel comic book fans, people who are geeks are generally good folks who just want to chat about this nerdy geeky stuff, and they want to find like-minded people to talk about it with. And that's me, man. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this. And that's why I say, please right into the show, because I would love to go back and forth with you. Even if we don't share it on the show, I'll write you back. I'll talk to you. I'll discuss this stuff with you. Um, just talking with the guest that I have on the show is not the only thing I want to do. I want to talk to you guys. I want to talk to the audience. I want to talk to the people that are listening, and also just feedback on the show. Anything I can do to improve it. You want me to add some special segments or something? I mean, whatever it is, let me know. Marvel Plus Podcast, gmail.com. What else? What else we got here? Please rate and review the show. It really does help. It's like the biggest thing you can do. I mean, yes, you can join the Patreon and support monetarily. But in terms of growing the podcast, helping it reach more people, sharing it with your friends is number one. Number two, go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and rate it 5 stars. And if you can, leave a written review. And I'll read it on the show too. So that's get your 5 minutes of fame. Get your 5 minutes of fame on Marvel Plus Podcast. The most listened to MCU podcast in the world. Don't try to verify that. Okay. Big week. We're halfway through this series. We had some stuff that we needed to find out last week, right? We were left with, okay, but they haven't dug into Renslayer or Miss Minutes or any of that stuff. Kang, any of that in these first 2 episodes. We got to get there at some point. What better place than the halfway point in the series, right? Start digging into the meat. Where's Renslayer? Where's Miss Minutes? What's going on with these Kang variants? Where are they? They're supposed to be all over the place, wreaking havoc, right? So this week we get to find out a little bit. We start off with Renslayer right off the bat. We got Renslayer. Where's Renslayer? Renslayer is back in 1868, Chicago, Illinois. She comes through the time door, and she's there to meet Miss Minutes. So boom, we got Renslayer, Miss Minutes, first 5, 20, whatever, 20 seconds, 30 seconds of the show. I did also enjoy the intro, the Marvel Studios intro was like old timey, like I love that. I love that. That was fantastic. I like that they do these little fun little things, fun little creative things that only fun creative people think of. So Miss Minutes shows up and tells Renslayer that, like, hey, we're here to drop off a package. We were supposed to drop it through this window, and we find out later that it's they're dropping off the TVA manual to Victor Timely, a young Victor Timely, which, if you don't know who Victor Timely is, he's a version of Kang. In this series, at least, I don't know about in the comics, but in this series, Victor Timely is the variant that becomes He Who Remains. So basically, they're trying to go back and make sure that Victor Timely becomes He Who Remains. I'm actually very confused by this. It's one of the reasons I love and hate time travel at the exact same time. Because it's like, here's a question. If they don't go back in time to give him the TVA guidebook, does he not become He Who Remains? And how can they exist to take it back to him if he doesn't become He Who Remains, right? It's like a beautiful circular Ouroboros snaking in itself loop. And it drives me insane, and that's part of the reason I like it. I like my brain to melt a little bit. That's why I like multiverse. That's why I like time travel. That's why a lot of people don't like multiverse and time travel. It makes things too easy to fix, right? You just say, oh, this was a variant. This was not the real version, what have you. Anytime you want to change anything, you say, well, that was just a version of that character. They died. Oh, well, we can bring back another one because that was just one version of the character. It does make storytelling a little easy on writers. That's the only real tiff I have with it. For the most part, I can't get enough of it. In fact, I watched a movie this weekend called Totally Killer on Amazon Prime. Highly recommend it. It's a mix of slasher film, horror / comedy mixed with Back to the Future. It's wild. Like a girl goes back in time and tries to stop a murder from happening 30 some years in the past, and it's a wild ride. And some of the things they do with time travel in that, I absolutely loved it. They did some clever storytelling with time travel in that film. So if you're into that sort of thing, go check it out. If not, maybe don't. But I have a friend who's not really into that sort of thing who absolutely loved it. So take that for what it's worth. I like it. I recommend it. My wife loved it. Go check it out if you enjoy that sort of thing, or if you don't. Maybe just trust my judgment. Trust my judgment and go check it out. So they drop off this manual to the TVA manual written by Ouroboros to a young child, Victor Timely, back in 1868 Chicago. And then we go and we catch up with Loki and Mobius at the TVA, where OB is still trying to increase the capacity of the temporal loom, so it'll fit all the branches, right? So it'll be able to handle all the branches. But they can't figure out what to do. So they need someone with like deep knowledge of this stuff. They really need Miss Minutes, but they're like, okay, but Miss Minutes is basically a villain. They've already realized this. Who are we going to get? Who are we going to get? I don't know. Miss Minutes is our only option. So they don't know where Miss Minutes is. How are they going to track down a cartoon clock, right? Throughout all of space and time. But they do get a hit on Ravonna Renslayer's temp pad, and they assume that those two are probably in cahoots together. So you find Renslayer, you find Miss Minutes. Miss Minutes is who we need to repair the temporal loom and make it able to handle all the new branches, right? Right. I think that's what's happening here. They get a hit saying that Renslayer is she popped up at two different times, but in the same location, Chicago, Illinois, both in 1868, which we just saw, and in 1893. So what the hell's going on here, right? They go back to 1868, but they don't see anything worthwhile there. They're like, there's no major events here. What's going on? There's Chicago fire, but that's not for another 3 years. Like, why 1868? Why is this special? Let's try the other date. Let's jump forward to 1893 Chicago and see what's there. They get there, boom, they're at the World's Fair. It's like Mobius completely forgot about that, big historical event. They're at the World's Fair, which is a big place for inventors. And not only is it like a big celebration, a carnival, a giant like state fair type event, but it's like people come from all over the country, maybe all over the world, to reveal their inventions and do shows and showcases and perform and all sorts of things. Big event. So this is the first, this is the World's Fair, Chicago, 1893. So they're trying to track down Renslayer so that they can find Miss Minutes. In the process, they happen upon a show that is advertising some sort of temporal aura or temporal loom, right? Which they're like, oh, this sounds like something that might be a reason Renslayer would be here. So they go into this like auditorium, this tent, and they see that the man leading or performing or revealing his inventions is a man named Victor Timely, who quickly Loki recognizes as He Who Remains. Looks a little different. He looks old-timey. He has like a beard, mustache, crazy hair, like a Black Einstein. He's up there and he's weird with his words. Like he's very, I don't know, kind of, he comes off as like anxious, kind of unsure, but definitely like a genius who just doesn't have a lot of social skills, and like a very interesting, like, I don't know, strange little man. And he's up there and he's showing off this new invention. It's like this, it's basically the prototype for the temporal loom, which is what they need to work on back at the TVA. So they're trying to track him down. They see that Loki's freaking out. He's like, dude, that's him. That is him. And Mobius is like, this dude doesn't look scary at all. He's like, yeah, well, not yet, but he's gonna be a force. Um, so he's got the prototype of the temporal loom. Um, let me see here. Let me check the notes here. Let me check them out. Okay. So they realize quickly that Renslayer is probably somewhere, and eventually they see her in the crowd. She is there trying to convince Victor Timely to come along. She knows exactly who he is and why they're there, and Miss Minutes is just right around the corner as well. So they find Ravonna Renslayer and Miss Minutes, but kind of realizing that an easier person to bring back might be this Victor Timely fellow rather than Miss Minutes, who seems to be their sworn enemy. Like, they all kind of have the same goal, supposedly, of repairing the temporal loom, saving the TVA, but no one trusts each other. So I I don't really quite understand that, except that it seems Miss Minutes and Renslayer kind of have ulterior motives. They don't just want to save the TVA, they want to rule by Kang's side, both of them. So they're kind of in competition a little bit there. So they're both there, and they're both kind of like vying for the attention of Victor Timely, trying to convince him, come back with us. We're the ones you need to come back with. Stay away from those other folks. They're bad news. And what's funny about this is that Victor Timely comes off as this like huckster, because all of the inventions and a lot of a lot of the technology that he's trying to work with is stuff that he's gotten from this TVA manual, which is from like not only the future but like out of time, not even in normal space and time. So technology has not caught up with his prototypes yet. He's unable to power a lot of this stuff. He's unable to make it work because of the time he lives in. So he comes off as this huckster, and everyone's like getting pissed at him, like, oh, you sold me this invention that doesn't work. So yeah, well, it will work eventually, I promise. So the whole town is kind of after this guy. Not the whole town, but everyone who was at the show. He's got several kind of predators, right? These people who have paid him or supported him financially that his inventions are doing nothing for, and they're pretty angry. So we got this mob of people trying to chase him down because he screwed him over. You've got Renslayer and Miss Minutes trying to drag him one way, and you've got Mobius and Loki trying to drag him the other way. Essentially, though, dragging him to the same place, just with different goals. Anyway, then also, to add to it, Sylvie shows up as well, vowing to kill this Kang variant, right? Gotta kill him. If she promised Loki, if she saw another Kang variant, what would she do? She would kill him. Simple as that. She'd kill him too, just like He Who Remains. So Sylvie shows up and she's trying to kill him, throwing an additional wrench in this crazy plan, and everyone trying to get to this guy. Eventually, Renslayer and Miss Minutes pull him away and lose Mobius and Loki and Sylvie, and they go off. They go back to this place. Victor Timely has some stuff, and he's like, "We got to go. My lab is actually across the lake in Wisconsin. That's where I actually live. That's where all my stuff is. That's where we need to go to get my invention that I need to take with us." So on the way across the lake, Miss Minutes is getting kind of weird, okay? Because Renslayer is really like moving in close. She's moving in close with Victor Timely. She's really trying to make herself important to him. And, she's coming on to him. She's, just cozying up to him, trying to be by his side, and mentioning that, she would love to form a partnership. Because at some point in some version of the future, they had some sort of alliance agreement, something, but I think she wanted a little more out of it. Miss Minutes doesn't like this very much. She doesn't like it. She's like, Renslayer's taking too much credit here. I'm the one really behind this. I'm the one who cares about what happens here. I should be by his side. It's me and him, not me and Renslayer. So she convinces Victor that, like, look, she's using you. She just wants to partner up with you, which he doesn't like partners. He made that clear earlier in the episode, like he doesn't do partners. So Miss Minutes convinces him, we got to ditch her, man. We got to ditch her. So they kick her off the boat into this little um, individual like life raft or whatever, and sail on without her. They make it back to Timely's home, his humble abode, which is not a humble abode at all. It's like a giant warehouse where he works on his inventions. And they go back there, and Miss Minutes is she kind of comes out. She comes clean. She's you know, she's a little angry, and she's a little bit love struck, and she's a little bit anxious because she felt like she was the one that was always there for him. Um, None of these other people, and she's the one that should be by his side. But not only that, she reveals that she is in love with him. He created her as a sentient consciousness, as an artificial intelligence that could learn and rewrite her own programming, and she has fallen in love with her creator, and she wants to rule by his side. Not only rule by his side, but like she wants them to have a legitimate relationship. She says, well, how come you never gave me a body in all the years? He's like, I don't know. I haven't done it yet. I haven't done any of this stuff yet. And she's like, well, you never did. All this stuff that we've been through, all the stuff we've done, you created me, you made me this way, and you wouldn't give me a body so we could have a real relationship. And I'm like, whoa, whoa. This cartoon clock is out there. She comes on a little strong here. Timely, he gets a little nervous because she's acting real weird and a little forceful and very upset with him. And he's very unsure, like, oh, maybe this is why I never gave her a body, And she's kind of coming at him with all these accusations and getting upset with him. And he somehow, I'm not even sure how he does it, but the device that he has works like a time displacer, like the sticks that they use to prune. It's a pruning stick, right? It works like that. This device that he has works like the pruner. It captures Miss Minutes. We don't know what happens to her, but we do find out later. It sent her to the end of time, right? So essentially, he pruned Miss Minutes, which I'm not sure I even knew that was possible, but he pruned Miss Minutes, and now it's just him, and Renslayer shows up, and he's like, oh, thank God. That clock is nuts. She's like, oh, well, you're nuts. You tried to ditch me. Dude, listen. Now she's upset. She's upset. Like, dude, all this stuff I've done for you, everything I do, I've done for you, and I deserve to rule by your side. And this is the thanks I get. You ditch me like this? Listen, I should be running shit. I should be running shit. So from now on, what I say is what's going to happen. Just about then, when he's getting a little nervous of Renslayer as well, this guy, he's got to feel so overwhelmed, right? He had all this thrust upon him. Like the TVA manual made him who he is, and these people show up and say, you're going to do these things, and we don't like some of the things you're going to do, so you have to change it. Like, wow. No wonder he ends up the person he becomes. So, Sylvie, Loki, and Mobius show up, and all with kind of different goals. Mobius and Loki, they want to take him back to save the TVA, to fix everything so that the universe doesn't come to an end. As much as they hate the TVA, they now realize that they kind of need it, and they need this Victor Timely to fix the temporal loom, and they probably need him to become He Who Remains. And Sylvie, obviously, she's the one who killed He Who Remains, so she's not on it. She's trying to get rid of this dude still. She wants to take him out. Every variant, every version of him that pops up, she wants to take care of. She wants to get rid of him. She wants to kill him. So she's there. She's trying to get to him. Loki is trying to fight her off. It's very reminiscent of what happened at the end of last season, right? Except something very different happens here. Loki ends up kind of convincing Sylvie, listen, it's a means to an end. We have to have this guy. Like, everything will be gone. Even that world you want to go back to will not exist if we don't fix this temporal loom, if this guy doesn't become He Who Remains, whatever. Like that's besides the point. The He Who Remains part is besides the point. Right now, the immediate focus is we've got to fix the temporal loom. We've got to make it able to handle these additional branches, right? We got to up the capacity. So they convince Sylvie that this is the right thing to do. Sylvie, right before killing him, decides, you know what? Take him. Take him back. Fix the loom. Do whatever. Don't make me regret this. Do not make me regret this. So, all of this is happening at the same time, though, that Renslayer is also trying to fight them off, right? Renslayer wants him for herself. Sylvie ends up, instead of pruning He Who Remains, when she decides to save him, essentially, she decides to prune Renslayer instead. Sends Renslayer to the end of time. So that, assumingly, Mobius and Loki can take him back to the TVA. Now Renslayer and Miss Minutes are at the end of time. And that is like the final scene that we get, right? We don't know that they go back to the TVA and everything works out, but we assume that that's what's going on next. Episode 4, we're going to see them back at the TVA trying to fix this thing. But we catch up with Renslayer and Miss Minutes at the end of time. They're sitting there in front of the body of He Who Remains, which is, I love callbacks like this. I love when they go back to a place and it's left like it was. Like, that's cool. And it was kind of creepy just seeing his body laying there. And it's like, since it's out of time, how long has he been laying there? No time at all? Did it just happen? Is there even such a thing as just happening or time? Not here, right? So they're there, they're in front of his body, and they're like, what are we going to do? We're here at the end of time. Renslayer is like, what are we going to do now? Apparently, Miss Minutes and Renslayer are an unlikely alliance again because they're all they have. They're the only people there, and the only people that haven't been that aren't part of the group going forward, right? So Renslayer, Miss Minutes says to Renslayer, like, there's one more thing I haven't told you, but when I tell you, you're going to be very upset. You're going to be mad. And Renslayer wants to know, and that is our cliffhanger. That is the ending. So my question to you as an audience is, since I don't have anyone here to bounce it off of, what is it? What is the revelation? What is it that Miss Minutes knows or has kept from Renslayer, maybe kept from everyone that none of us know? What is it? Is it something about the variants? Like, I think everyone knows that she was plucked from the timeline, that everyone at the TVA was plucked from the timeline. So what could it be? What could this crazy new information be? I'm really at a loss. I have no idea. None. At least right now. I'm sure if I thought about it, and if I had someone here to bounce it off of, I'm sure they've had some clever theories. But I got nothing. I got nothing this week. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. Please write into the show. Hit up the Marvel Plus Facebook group. Talk to me in there. Hit me up on social media at Real Brett Scott. Marvel Plus Podcast at gmail.com. Anywhere and everywhere. I want to talk about this. Let's hear it. Let's hear your theories. What are we going to find out this Thursday on episode 4? Yeah. What is it? What's the secret? What's the secret? What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? Guys, I've actually done pretty well with this episode. I'm already over a half an hour in. I thought I'd be wrapped up in like 10 minutes and be like, what do I talk about now? But lo and behold, I'm pretty good at just talking shit for a long period of time. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess it's good for podcasting. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of this week's episode. You're my guest this week. The audience is my guest this week for Marvel Plus. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I want a conversation going. I want to go back and forth before this fourth episode drops. I want to have theories in my head that I can be expecting, or have rolling around in there before the actual reveal. It makes it more fun, man. And it's like, what could it be? Could it be this? Could it be that? I don't know, man. And then boom, as Rhodey says, boom, there it is. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that does it for this week's episode. I know it's a short one, but like I said, longer than I expected to go, all by my lonesome. Cannot wait to talk to our guest next week. Like I said, I was very psyched to have him this week for the show. Unfortunately, that wasn't able to happen. Our schedules did not line up as we thought they would. But I have talked to him. He has confirmed next week he will be here to discuss episode 4. Cannot wait for that. Also, guys, I'm really trying to get into this GalaxyCon Columbus again. I want to do another live show. Maybe this year, not have the recording cut out halfway through. That would be ideal. But yeah, go over to GalaxyCon Columbus Facebook page and just tell them like you want Marvel Plus to have a panel there. You want Brett Scott to get a panel there. I'm sure they've probably already made up or made up their minds. I'm sure that it's not going to make any difference, like what my couple of audience members say. But you never know. You never know. I would love to do it live again. I plan to broadcast live from there with Alejandro Martinez once again. Do a countdown for the year. We don't have as much stuff to cover this year, so it actually, I was thinking it wouldn't be great, but it might be. It might be a lot more discussion, in-depth discussion of the items on the list of best MCU movies and TV series of 2023. And that's what we'll be covering, like everything that came out in 2023. So I guess that's everything from Ant-Man and the Wasp up until now. And I don't know if they're going to drop anything else before the end of the year. Probably not. Maybe they'll drop a Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special or holiday special in black and white. I don't know. I don't know. They're wacky sometimes over there at the Marvel Studios. But I hope we get more. I hope we get one last thing. But it seems like Loki will be the last thing before this countdown. So what is that, like five things to count? That would be a top 5 list. And it's usually a pretty short podcast, 45 minutes or so. But it's live. It's a lot of fun. We get a live audience there, which was so cool last year to do. That's how I met Alejandro, and that's how we came to be friends and podcasting together and all that. So can't wait to meet up with him there again. He's from here in Ohio as well. Like, he's way up in Cleveland. I'm down here in Columbus. About 2 hours away from each other. But he comes down to GalaxyCon every year for that, and pretty cool. And there's buku celebrities there. I can't wait. Like, hopefully get to meet some of my favorite voice actors and actors, MCU actors. You're not going to run into like the Chris Evans and the Downey Juniors and whatnot. But I believe Charlie Cox is going to be there. Vincent D'Onofrio is going to be there from my favorite Marvel thing, like maybe ever, the Daredevil Netflix series, which I've rewatched like 3 or 4 times now. And I don't see myself ever stopping. I'm going to continue to rewatch that series until the day I die. Fantastic. If you haven't watched the Daredevil Netflix series, what is wrong? Like, who are you? I don't even know you. You are not a Marvel fan. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it immediately. It's one of the best pieces of Marvel media ever created. God damn, it's good. It's so good. Anyway, yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that here in like 6 weeks, I think, is the GalaxyCon. Can't wait for that. Can't wait to talk to you guys again next week with my guest. I'm really pumped to have him. He's a super funny, super cool guy. So, yeah, a lot of ums and ahs here. It's what you get when you get me recording solo last minute. But I wanted to get this episode out. I didn't want to put it off any longer. I didn't want to skip a week. I didn't want to, you know, I'm not skipping a week, right? I'm not skipping a week. That's not what I do. I'm going to put out content no matter what. Even if I'm not here. Even if fate determines that I don't live past 2024. In 2025, you're still going to be getting new episodes of Marvel Plus with a fill-in host. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this. This is I'm rambling at this point. I'm trying to fill the time. I'm trying to give you a nice meaty episode, and I don't have much else to give you. As I said before, please subscribe to the podcast. Please like, share it. Join the Patreon if you're interested. Patreon.com/Marvel Plus. Go over to TeePublic. Pick you up some Marvel Plus merch. You can get shirts, hats, mugs, stickers, all kinds of crazy shit. And then also, I did forget to mention this earlier. If you join the Marvel Plus Patreon during Loki, during the airing of the 6 episodes of Loki, so for the next 3 weeks or so, I'll be sending you out a free Marvel Plus t-shirt of your choosing. There's a couple different options over there, merch options, different versions of the t-shirt. If you join the Patreon, I'll send that out for free. No charge. You'll get a Marvel Plus t-shirt along with your Patreon subscription, which is not usually a thing. Usually you just get what you get for the Patreon subscription. And the t-shirt is literally worth like 5 or 6 months worth of Patreon subscription. So it's a deal. If you want a Marvel Plus t-shirt, if you want extra bonus content, go check out the Patreon. Okay, I'm done plugging the Patreon. That's going to do it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this solo episode. I did the best I could all by my lonesome, but hey, that's how this podcast started. It was never meant to be a guest show. In fact, it was supposed to be me and one other guy, and that was going to be the show. And he kind of couldn't commit to something that, I mean, it's massive. It's a massive commitment. Possibly years worth of commitment, and committing to week after week after week of recording, it's tough, and I get it. So that kind of fell through. And then I was like, you know what? I'm still going forward. I'm gonna host it alone. And then what I did is I had a guest on, or a couple guests on, for like a special episode. And from then on, I'm like, dude, this is so much more fun when I've got someone to talk to. But I don't necessarily want to pick one person and just always have the same 2 opinions all the time. Now, you still got to deal with my opinion every week, which pretty much remains the same no matter what. So I apologize for that. But in hopes of like bringing you back in when you get tired of my opinion, I bring on new guests all the time to get brand new, fresh opinions on all things MCU. So that's what we do here. But as I said, I'm a podcaster. It's what I do. I can talk by myself. I have a YouTube channel that I've been running for like, almost 12 years now. I have other podcasts, the Daily BS podcast, Long Lost Brothers podcast. It's what I do, man. So, when faced with the challenge of doing an episode alone, I'm like, you know what? Why not? I'll embrace this challenge. It's what I do. It's what I do, man. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope it wasn't too boring for you. Let me know. Let me know if you're okay with these solo episodes. Maybe I'll do them every once in a while if you enjoy that. I doubt it. I think you would much rather have a guest on to go back and forth with me, but maybe that's not the case. Just let me know what you think of this kind of thing. And do you mind that I did a solo episode? Would you mind if in the future I did a couple here and there? Because believe it or not, as much as it was like, I don't know if I'll be able to fill enough time, talking about this one episode, I do enjoy it. I get something out of this. I love it. Like, I love just like spewing all the opinions and the thoughts that I have. So I'd love some feedback on that. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with me through these past 3 years of podcasting. It's been a fun run, and it's going to continue. We're just getting started, baby. We're just getting started. Thank you so much. As always, my name is Brett Scott, and this has been Marvel Plus.